For those who are just getting into Warfighter, or perhaps are having difficulty fully understanding how it plays, this sequence of play is the guide to get you through your first full game. The sequence of play consists of two sections, the soldier's turn and the hostile turn. You perform all the actions during your soldier turn, and then you perform the hostile turn. What's important to understand is that you can take actions in any order you desire. The only requirement is that you check for the environment first when you start your player turn. Otherwise, you can freely perform the actions and activities in any order you desire unless otherwise stated by the cards. At the start of the turn, any soldiers who are in locations that call for an environmental check must roll at or below the number listed on a 10-sided die. If the soldier passes the check, nothing happens, but if they fail the check, then they must discard a hardy counter, suffer a suppress, or suffer a wound. I have a short video that discusses environmental checks in greater detail. Once you have checked for the environment, you can take the following actions or activities in any order that you desire. Unless otherwise stated on your player soldier card, you will need to keep track with your action markers. Most of the actions are self-explanatory. If a player soldier has a suppress counter, then they can only use their actions to remove the suppress. Remember that only player and non-player soldiers can reload. Squad soldiers never run out of ammo. Only player soldiers can perform this action, and remember that you can discard as many cards as you want and then draw up to your health limit. Keep in mind that you may be required to pay more than a single action to engage in hand-to-hand combat. Hand-to-hand combat may only be performed when you are in the same location card as the hostile. Although all the aforementioned actions take an action point, you may be able to perform some of them for free if you play an action card. For example, if you play an action card that allows for a free reload, then you do not spend an action point. The following activities do not require the use of an action point. Plus, you can play them in any order that you wish, mixing them with actions that do require expenditures of an action point. Keep in mind that if the card says you must pay an action to use it, then you must pay action points. This only applies to playing an action card or location card if it is stated. This is where you flip the marker on an objective card from inactive to active. You may pass weapons or equipment from one player soldier to another if you are in the same location. You may also drop gear for another player soldier to pick up when they enter the location. You cannot pass or drop weapons, equipment, and gear that have been used that turn. You may also discard action cards to help move non-player and squad soldiers to new locations, drop equipment, and pay retain cost. Using a player and non-player soldier, both have two actions to spend on a turn and they are in the same location. The player soldier uses one action to discard and draw his hand up to full, while the non-player soldier uses one action to attack a hostile in his location. The player soldier passes ammo to the non-player soldier at this time. The player soldier then plays a location card which does not require an action because, as the card states, it is free to play. The non-player soldier uses his second action to move into the new location, paying for the entrance cost. The player soldier uses his second action to enter the new location. Both soldiers have now expended both of their action points. Now that you have completed the player turn, it's time to start the hostile turn. The hostile turn does require following a preset order of events. You draw from the hostile deck for each location that has one of your soldiers, or has an always reinforced keyword on that location. Remember to add a targeting counter to denote which soldier is being targeted by a hostile. All hostiles that are in range of targeted soldiers will attack. If a hostile is not in range of a targeted soldier, it will move one location card closer to get within range. Remember that suppressed hostiles cannot move. You can remove one suppression counter from each hostile. Now you advance the mission timer and start with a new soldier turn. You have now completed a full turn of Warfighter, both for your soldiers and the hostiles that you face. Warfighter is a cooperative game for 1 to 6 players. While the complexity is considered moderate for a war game, grasping some of the basic concepts can be challenging. What follows is the sample mission found on pages 39 through 44 of the first edition rules for Warfighter World War II. This video is the first of 2 parts. The mission chosen is Just Another Day, which means 23 resource points and 7 turns to complete. The objective is bunker clearing, with the inactive counter placed on the objective. The German elite hostiles will be the bad guys for this example. The resource points are used to purchase the following: McDougal, an M1 903A4 scoped rifle, 2 Mark II grenades, and a K-bar knife. Walsh, a non-player soldier, comes equipped with an M1, first aid kit, and the Corpsman and Green skills. The purchases are rounded out with 2 squad soldiers, Smith and Taylor. Soldier counters are assigned to the mission card and their respective soldier cards. Ammo is placed for McDougal and Walsh. Smith and Taylor do not require ammo counters. Action counters are placed for all 4 soldiers. Targeting counters are put into the cup. 5 action cards are dealt to McDougal, and the mission timer is set. Because the mission allows the team to recon for a location, a specific location is selected from the location deck. For this example, it is the large warehouse. The large warehouse is placed next to the mission card, costing McDougal both of his actions. 6 points of hostiles are now drawn. They include a flamethrower, grenadier, ambushers, flankers, and an officer, which ends the draw. The flankers are placed next to the mission card as per their nearmost text. The same for the ambushers because of their targeted text. Since the officer can be screened by the flamethrower and grenadier, he is placed behind them on the board. McDougal pays 2 experience points to negate the suppression effect listed on the ambusher's card. The hostiles now target the soldiers using a random draw from the targeting cup. McDougal plays the action card Foobar to gain an additional action for the turn. Smith uses 1 action to attack the ambushers. He succeeds in killing one of them thanks to his attack and defeat cover rolls. The ambushers now have 2 reticles remaining. Taylor uses his only action to attack the flankers. He manages to suppress them. Smith uses his final action to attack the ambushers again. He succeeds in suppressing the other one. Walsh uses all 3 of his actions, starting with shooting at the flamethrower, and manages to kill him with an impressive roll despite having the green skill. Walsh earns a single experience points for eliminating the flamethrower. Next, he attacks the ambushers, but he only manages to score a suppression. However, his low attack roll means that Walsh is out of ammo. He uses his final action to reload. The hostiles begin their part of the turn by activating reinforcements. However, since no soldier has left the mission card, this does not occur save for the officer who always draws regardless of location. He pulls a tank which exceeds the reinforcement range, so it is discarded. With the reinforcement step concluded, the Inspire notation on the officer removes a single suppression from the flankers and ambushers. Now, the ambushers attack Smith. He succeeds in suppressing him. The flankers attack McDougal. They manage to score a hit and wound the player soldier. This reduces McDougal's health by 1. The officer and grenadier are out of range, so they cannot attack, but they can advance into the mission card. During the suppression removal phase, 1 suppression is taken from the ambushers. The mission timer is reduced to 6, and the turn is over. The second turn starts with McDougal tossing a grenade at the flankers. He is incredibly successful and manages to kill the flankers, which earns him 3 experience points. Smith uses his first action to remove a suppression. McDougal plays Camouflage and adds an experience point, which allows the officer, even though he is being screened, to be attacked by any soldier. Smith decides to take advantage with his second action and shoots at the officer. He succeeds, which kills the officer and results in 3 experience points for Smith. Taylor attacks the grenadier. The suppression result is negated because of Fearless, so nothing happens. Walsh shoots at the grenadier and manages to kill him. Because the grenadier's value was 0, Walsh does not earn experience points for his success. McDougal uses his second action to shoot at the ambushers. He manages to kill one of them. Walsh uses his second action to shoot at the ambushers as well. He succeeds and kills the remaining one, which results in 2 experience points for Walsh. Because Walsh has the Corpsman skill, he uses his final action to heal the wound on McDougal. McDougal uses his third action, thanks to the Foobar card, and draws up to the maximum hand size of 5 cards. Since there are no hostiles to draw or fire on the soldiers, the suppress counters are removed and the turn ends with the mission counter moved down to 5. Will the team reach the objective? Part 2 of our play example will tell. Turn 3 begins with all action counters returned to their ready status. All the soldiers use 1 action to move into the large warehouse. McDougal must discard for himself, Smith, and Taylor to meet the movement requirements, but Walsh does not need any assistance in that regard thanks to his movement value. Since all hostiles generated by the large warehouse have been destroyed, the soldiers collect the 5 resource points that are available. They choose the following items: one M3 submachine gun, one M1911 pistol, and one canteen. Ammo counters are placed for the SMG and pistol, plus McDougal gets 2 experience points thanks to the pistol. He uses his second action to draw back up to 5 cards, but no other actions are taken for the soldier's turn. The hostile turn sees a reinforcement draw, but the card drawn exceeds the range, so it is discarded. The turn ends and the mission timer is reduced to 4. On turn 4, the inactive counter on the bunker clearing objective is removed thanks to at least one soldier being in the location adjacent to the card. The reinforcement draw sees a rifleman card with an event notation and mortar team being drawn. The rifleman targets Walsh, while the mortar team, which is screened by the rifleman, targets McDougal. The event card turns out to be a minefield, but McDougal spends 2 experience points to evade it. Taylor uses his action to shoot at the rifleman and manages to suppress one of them. Walsh spends all 3 actions to attack the rifleman. He manages to inflict 2 suppressions, but a low attack roll means his final action is used to reload his rifle. McDougal uses his 2 actions to attack the rifleman. He manages to kill one and suppress the other, but the suppression has no effect. Now it's the hostiles' turn, and they manage to pull a rifleman card for reinforcements in the large warehouse. They inflict a wound on Smith, which kills him. Taylor and McDougal are suppressed because of their panic. The mortar team manages to get a wound result on McDougal, but thanks to the self-sacrifice card, that is switched to Taylor. All the hostiles stay in their locations, so a suppression is removed from the rifleman and the mission timer is moved down to 3. Turn 5 begins with McDougal playing Walk It Off, which allows him to remove a suppression counter for free. He then discards the canteen to draw 3 action cards. Taylor uses an action to remove his suppression counter. McDougal now plays Flanking Attack, which lets him move into the bunker clearing objective for free, and then engage into a hand-to-hand attack on the rifleman with his K-bar knife. McDougal chooses the strong attack and succeeds in killing one rifleman. Now McDougal uses his first action to toss his final grenade at the remaining rifleman. He manages to kill him, which earns a single experience point. Walsh uses his first action to attack the other rifleman, killing one of them. His next 2 actions he uses to attack the mortar team, managing 2 suppression results. McDougal uses his second action to fire on the mortar team with his SMG. He kills one of them, but needs to reload. The hostiles now draw for reinforcements, but do not succeed. The riflemen attack McDougal and manage to score a wound. The mortar team cannot attack because they are too close to McDougal. The suppression counter on the mortar team is removed, and the mission timer is reduced to 2. Turn 6 begins with Taylor firing on the mortar team, and manages to kill one of them. Walsh uses 2 of his actions to attack the mortar team. He manages to kill the remainder and earn 4 experience points. McDougal then spends an action to reload his SMG. He fires at the bunker from point-blank range, overcomes the cover, and manages to destroy it. That ends the mission, which was successful. It's not so much what you want to do, but what you really have to work with that is crucial to success in Warfighter World War II. Knowing how to build up your team with the right weapons, explosives, and equipment will maximize your chances of success. Of course, nothing is guaranteed, but it pays to be prepared for whatever the enemy might throw at you. You start by choosing the nationality of the soldiers on your team. The differences between the nationalities are not too great, but a new expansion does provide a unique element to each nationality. At this point, you choose the nationality and strength level of your opponents. You can pick the frontline soldiers, or step it up and select the elite soldiers as your opponents. Now you need to shape your squad to match the mission you are facing. Most missions require traveling to different locations and facing different types of enemy soldiers. Also, there are event cards that might bring a surprise engagement or challenge to your mission. For player soldiers, you will need to choose the weapons, ammunition, and equipment you want to take. Non-player soldiers and squad soldiers include everything they carry on the card, but they do not have access to action cards. You are limited by the points as dictated by each mission. Plus, your soldiers can only carry so much gear. With that in mind, you should shape your team to meet the expected challenges as much as possible. What follows are a few tips that will help you build your forces to maximize their potential. When at all possible, use at least 2 player soldiers for each mission. While they take up more of the available points, having access to more action cards provides a wider range of options. You'll learn to love grenades in Warfighter. They are the get-out-of-jam weapon of choice. However, you only have a limited amount that can be carried, so be careful when using them. For longer missions, you'll need to consider both short and long-range weapons. Standard rifles may not look very attractive, but they are reliable and well suited for combating the enemy in the same location or one location away. A medium machine gun is expensive, but it is quite effective with its multiple targeting abilities. Keep in mind that there are non-player soldiers who carry medium machine guns. That might shave off a few points. You'll also want to save a few points by adding 1 or 2 squad soldiers to your crew. While a typical squad soldier may not look like much, they can draw enemy fire, protect soldiers carrying larger weapons, and even contribute to the battle. The action cards represent the heart of the game. They offer a myriad of opportunities that range from selecting new locations to adding free actions your soldiers can take and providing new elements that may be used during the mission. Of the different elements that make up the Warfighter series, efficient card flow is arguably the most potent offensive weapon in your arsenal. So moving the most cards through your hand is crucial to success. As you may notice, I have sleeved up my action cards with orange backings in case I am playing during hunting season. Card flow is a familiar term for those who play Magic the Gathering, for example. Essentially, the greater the card flow, the more cards are being pushed through your hand every turn. This means the more opportunities you have to find the type of action cards needed for your current situation. Efficient card flow recognizes the balance between holding on to what is essential and getting rid of what is not, so that way you can find what is needed for your particular situation. What many players misunderstand is the relative importance of each action card. For example, the Mortar Strike is a powerful card, perhaps the best in the game in terms of clearing out the enemy, so hanging on to it may seem like an obvious choice. But what if you need a location card? The more action cards you can discard, the more cards you can put into your hand. If you cannot pay for the Mortar Strike, then it's not doing you any good sitting in your hand. Knowing when to get rid of action cards can be difficult, especially when you see one that may fulfill a need soon. You can help solve this issue by prioritizing what's in your hand. If you do not have a new location to move your troops, that takes precedent over everything else, especially if you're running out of time. But if you have the time, perhaps blasting away at some enemy combatants with the Mortar Strike is the best move. Everything will depend on what is the most needed action for your current situation. The better the card flow through the action deck, the better your chances of finding something that is needed immediately. By prioritizing, you can keep only what is essential while still getting closer to what you need. For your mission, you use the number of resource points listed on the mission card to purchase the following: soldiers, weapons, equipment, skills, and service records. The only requirement is that you must purchase at least one player soldier. For the most part, what soldiers carry on the mission is all they will receive. However, there are some missions which allow for the ability to resupply your forces. So here are a few tips to remember when purchasing your cards. The number of weapons, equipment, and skill cards available does not limit what can be purchased. You can purchase more even if you do not have the cards. It is 1 resource point and 1 loadout point to buy extra ammo equal to the number of ammo counters noted on the weapon card. You are not required to spend all the resource points that are available. Keep in mind that the loadout modifier on the mission card only applies to what your player soldiers can carry in terms of weapons, equipment, skills, and service records. If 2 or more player soldiers are in the same location card, they can freely pass weapons and equipment cards between them as long as they do not exceed their loadout capacity. Only the same type of ammo can be passed between player soldiers and non-player soldiers. Understanding how to purchase your cards so that they are fine-tuned to complete the objective will help you in succeeding with your mission. In Warfighter, there are 3 types of soldiers. Player soldiers, which are the only ones that can use action cards, non-player soldiers, and squad soldiers. Squad soldiers have a resource value that normally ranges from 1 to 13 or perhaps even more points. They have their own weapons, skills, equipment, and abilities, which are printed on the card. Squad soldiers tend to be the worst soldiers available. Many can only take 1 hit, their weapons are not optimal, and sometimes they have abilities and/or low movement values that may hinder your team. However, before you spend the final few resource points on more grenades, you might want to consider adding a squad soldier or 2 to your forces. One big advantage of having a squad soldier is that they are targeted by hostiles just like any other soldier. This can protect your more valuable player and non-player soldiers from enemy fire. If all a squad soldier does is take a bullet meant for another member of your team, then they have done their duty. Squad soldiers are quite useful when paired with other soldiers who might be vulnerable to enemy attack. For example, by staying with a soldier armed with a medium machine gun, they can help protect them from close-range fire. Conversely, being paired with a soldier who carries a flamethrower provides longer range fire to take out a potential enemy that otherwise would be out of range. Many squad soldiers have attributes, such as extra weapons and skills, that might be quite useful during a mission. From starting with experience points to carrying grenades to having useful skills, you can use a squad soldier to fill a vital role in your team. Some squad soldiers carry special weapons, such as mortars for example, which provide indirect fire. Squad soldiers are not the most glamorous soldiers on your team, but they do provide valuable assistance in drawing enemy fire, guarding soldiers carrying important weapons, and providing versatility to help you accomplish your mission. When building up your squad, you are limited by the resource points the mission allows. Player soldiers, non-player soldiers, and squad soldiers all have resource point values. All weapons, equipment, skills, and abilities that player soldiers carry have resource point values as well. The loadout value of the player soldier determines how many resource points worth of weapons, equipment, skills, and abilities that they can carry. However, some weapons and equipment have a loadout value that takes precedent over the resource points in terms of what can be carried. For example, an M1 rifle has a resource cost of 2, but a loadout value or weight of 4. This means when checking to see how much your soldier can carry, the loadout value is used to determine the total. It is possible to afford a weapon or equipment, but not be able to carry it depending on what else the soldier is handling. In addition to the limits placed on each soldier in terms of what they can carry, the mission card may add, subtract, or not affect the total loadout amount. The loadout modifier is at the bottom of each mission card. That number is applied to every player soldier's loadout value. For example, a loadout value of 12 on a mission where it is reduced by -5 would equal 7 as a soldier's loadout value for that particular mission. So, when building up your team, be sure to account for the loadout value of what each player soldier can carry.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I see you have Warfighter out. Are you going to play a game?
Actually, I had a question.
Go ahead.
I have seen the desire by many Warfighter players to have pre-designated teams when they perform missions.
That is understandable. While I believe that creating a team provides a more immersive experience, there are many who simply want to start playing the missions right away.
And pre-designated teams provide that answer?
Yes. They offer players the ability to choose a squad that has been created by others to play a specific mission. But there is an alternative that offers both the ability to play missions while minimizing the time to create a squad.
Is this going to be one of your 2-player soldiers videos? You have done that in the past, like in the link above.
No. Well, yes. Sort of. Hear me out.
This better be good.
Instead of using a pre-designated squad or building a team from scratch, you instead create 1, 2, or 3 player soldiers and use them for every mission.
That still sounds like a lot of work.
Well, not really, since you are creating player soldiers that will be used over and over again. This means that you only need to select the right number of player soldiers for each mission, and then fill out the remaining resource point requirements with non-player soldiers, squad soldiers, or special equipment that may be needed for a particular mission.
I'm not sure I follow.
Well, okay, here's an example. Let's start by creating 1 player soldier. I'll choose McDougal because he comes with 3 experience points, even though he tends to panic.
His movement factor is only 2.
I'm not saying he's perfect, but it is a start. Next, give McDougal an M1 rifle, 3 Mark II grenades, and web gear.
Why web gear?
Well, because it adds 4 to McDougal's loadout rating, plus we can add a canteen, bayonet, and another experience point, too. Add it all up, and McDougal's total point value is 17. But you can add additional skills if you want to make him more effective in a particular area, such as Rifleman, Knife Fighter, and the like. Marksman is particularly good since it works well with all ranged weapons.
McDougal looks pretty bland.
Well, that's on purpose. A crucial aspect of player soldiers is their ability to discard and draw action cards. By keeping McDougal rather bland, you can focus his efforts on drawing action cards that may reap strong benefits during the mission. Plus, he can carry extra equipment depending on the mission.
Why not arm the player's soldiers with more potent weapons such as a medium machine gun or bazooka?
This is where non-player soldiers come in. For example, Baker carries an M1A1 rocket launcher, Moore and Scanlon have machine guns, and Pacheco has the M1903A4 scoped rifle. This is all from the European World War II set.
How does this work for missions?
Well, the Just Another Day mission has only 23 resource points. With McDougal, you've already got 17 added up. That means you only need 6 more for the mission. You can add a couple of squad soldiers, buy some more grenades, and he's ready to go.
Is this better than having a pre-designated team?
There is no doubt that there are those who simply want to play the game. I am saying that player soldiers can carry over from mission to mission, which makes building the rest of the team easier and faster. Plus, it provides for a more immersive experience thanks to creating a single-player soldier that can be used over and over again. One aspect of Warfighter that might cause some confusion is the entrance cost for your soldiers. As stated in the rules, you can only move your soldiers into an adjacent location card and only if they pay the entrance cost. Located in the upper right corner of the location card, the entrance cost is the number of action cards that you must discard to enter the location. However, there are factors which may add or subtract to the entrance cost. A soldier's movement value pays for the entrance cost. This means that if the movement value of a soldier is equal to or greater than the entrance cost, you do not have to discard any action cards. If the movement value is less than the entrance cost, then you must discard action cards to make up the difference. Plus, the presence of certain hostiles may add to the entrance cost as well. This only applies if it is noted on the hostile card. If the hostile is suppressed or hit, then the entrance penalty is reduced. There are action cards that may boost the movement value of a soldier. You can apply the effects of an action card to only one soldier unless otherwise stated. Remember that you can pay the entrance cost of non-player and squad soldiers as well with action cards from any player soldier. When you run out of ammo, hand-to-hand combat may be your only chance to defend your soldier. There are 2 types of hand-to-hand, or H-to-H combat, unarmed and melee. An unarmed encounter occurs when the soldier does not have a weapon. A melee encounter occurs when the soldier does have a weapon. Both types of hand-to-hand combat use the same rules. To engage in hand-to-hand, a soldier must be in the same location card as the hostile. Squad soldiers, structures, aircraft, and vehicles cannot be engaged in hand-to-hand combat unless otherwise noted. If the text on a hostile card allows it to go into hand-to-hand with squad soldiers, structures, aircraft, or vehicles, then the attack is conducted at range 0. Choose one hostile to fight and pay the number of actions indicated on the location card. Remember that you can set aside actions on one turn. Then add them on the next turn to pay to engage in hand-to-hand combat. Once paid, the soldier does not need to pay it again if he attacks the same hostile. Place the H-to-H marker, the bell rings, and the fight begins. For hand-to-hand combat, use the reference card to choose the type of attack you want to make. Just like normal combat, you must roll to defeat the cover. Roll the number of attack dice as indicated by the R column. If any rolls are equal or less than the number in the ST column, you stumble. If you stumble, place one suppress counter on your soldier. If any rolls are equal or greater than the number in the H column, you score a hit. The P column indicates the penetration number of a successful attack. If you've defeated the cover and scored a hit, the hostile is killed. If you didn't defeat the cover and scored a hit, the hostile is suppressed. It is possible to both stumble and hit your opponent on the same turn. Weapons such as knives or bayonets will have their own hand-to-hand combat tables on the card to use. But let's say you have a knife and you don't want to get your hands dirty in hand-to-hand combat. You can always throw the knife at them if you're in the same location. Weapons that can be thrown will have the ability listed on the card and is one of the options listed under Mode. Keep in mind that once you throw the weapon, it can't be used again until the hostile is eliminated. During the reinforcement draw phase, you will do the following. Draw one hostile card for each location card that has a reinforcement number and a soldier present. Draw one hostile card for each location that states, Always Reinforce. Draw one hostile card for each hostile that has a reinforce value, if in range. When you draw a hostile card, check the value in the upper right corner. If it matches the reinforcement point value on the location card, add the hostile card to that location unless it states otherwise, such as Frontmost or Rearmost. If it does not match, then do not place the hostile card. Discard it instead. Do not draw another hostile card. Here are a few things to remember. The reinforce value is not the number of hostiles, but rather the value printed in the upper right corner of the card. If a hostile card with a reinforcement ability is suppressed, do not draw for reinforcements from that card. In addition, if a location has none printed for its reinforcement value, then do not draw a hostile card. And remember that when you draw a hostile card, randomly draw any targeting counter as well. It is possible that you might draw multiple hostile cards from the same location if one of your soldiers is present, or you may not draw any hostiles at all. That's the nature of Warfighter. Facing the enemy in Warfighter means going up against soldiers known as hostiles. Hostiles are similar to squad soldiers in that they have a weapons chart on their cards and do not use action cards. To attack a hostile, you must defeat its cover with a roll on a 6-sided die. Then score a hit on a 10-sided die. Scoring a hit and not defeating the cover results in suppression. There are two types of hostiles, Frontline and Elite. Frontline represents the common conscripted soldiers who are brave but not as threatening as the elite soldiers. A hostile card represents the number of soldiers as shown in the reticule. For example, a reticule of 3 represents 3 separate soldiers on one hostile card. All reticules must be killed before the card can be removed. Some hostiles will have a reinforce effect. This means that during the reinforcing phase, a single hostile is drawn for this card and resolved according to the same rules that apply to locations. There are hostiles that have no attack abilities but have the reinforce effect. Some hostile cards have an event notation. You must draw an event card immediately and resolve it. Hostiles also have special notes on their cards indicating certain abilities. You can consult the keyword sheet to see the effect of each ability. If listed, you must carry out the ability on the hostile. Some abilities are not active if the hostile is suppressed, and this includes the reinforcing ability. However, the screened effect is always in play even when suppressed. Screen means it protects another hostile in its location if their value falls within the range listed on the card. When a soldier kills a hostile, they will gain the number of experience points listed on the top right corner of the card. A hostile which is removed by other means, such as mortars for example, does not give experience points to any soldier. If you are new to Warfighter, you can start with the frontline hostiles. When you build up enough experience, you can take on the more seasoned elite hostiles. One aspect of the hostile reinforcement phase that may be a little confusing to new players is the terms frontmost and rearmost. When a hostile card is drawn and qualifies to be placed, it does not necessarily go in the location from which it was activated. If the hostile card says frontmost, then it is placed in the location card furthest away from the mission card that contains friendly soldiers. If the hostile card says rearmost, then it is placed in the location card closest to the mission card that contains friendly soldiers. It is possible that a hostile card may be placed in the mission card itself if it contains soldiers. There may be times when a hostile card is placed in an area that has no location card. In such cases, put the hostile in the empty area and treat it as if it were a location. You may find that a hostile has targeted a soldier that is furthest away in the group. If the hostile is not in range, it will move one location card closer to them each turn. This may seem unrealistic at first, but it does add to the confusion of the battlefield. When you think of the locations as not being in a straight line, then it makes sense for some hostiles to see soldiers who are far away, but not the ones that are closer. When a soldier is reduced to 0 health, they are considered downed. This means that the soldier's wounds cannot be addressed, and they can no longer participate in the mission. Once a player or non-player soldier is downed, their counter is removed from the board. Any weapons, equipment, or ammo that the soldier was carrying is left in that location. This means that other soldiers can pick up what the downed soldier left behind if they are in that location card. All action cards from the player soldier are discarded. If you have a soldier who has 1 or 2 health remaining, you can choose to remove them from the mission during your soldier's turn. The practical effect of removing a soldier only applies if you are playing a campaign. This is because you can determine if the soldier who is removed can return to duty, receive a medical discharge, or is killed in action. A soldier returned to duty means they can participate in the next mission during the campaign. Being discharged or killed means that they are no longer available. If a soldier is downed or removed during a mission, you will need to recalculate the resource point value of your team. This is because each location that generates hostiles will do so based on your current resource point value. Dropping that value may mean facing fewer hostiles. Remember to include the resource value of all player soldiers' weapons and equipment. Skills do not count. You should recalculate your resource point value for every squad soldier, non-player soldier, and player soldier, along with all player soldier weapons and equipment that is lost or expended, such as a grenade, for example. A downed or removed soldier is never desirable, but remember that you may face fewer hostiles as a result. Although Warfighter is built around individual missions, they can be combined into a campaign format to recreate the historic battles of World War II. To get started, you need to select a campaign sheet and place it next to the tactical display. The campaign you choose will have a location, year, and brief history of the actual campaign itself. For example, if you choose the Wake Island Invasion and take the offensive card, you will be playing as a Japanese player against the American defenders. The campaign will state the type of region, how many weeks it will last, and what expansions are needed to play the campaign itself. The map will provide you with a starting location and the areas where you will have future missions until reaching the end of the campaign. In addition to the starting locations and objectives, there are special rules for the campaign that will shape the forces that you can provide, any resource points that might be gained or lost upon completing each mission objective, and any special conditions, such as what might have happened if you failed to complete the objective. Now that you know what the campaign requires, the next step is to create a squad that will help you achieve victory. You use the resource points that are given in a campaign to purchase the soldiers, skills, weapons, and equipment that you will need. Each soldier will keep the gear that they have been assigned. Keep in mind that you can divide your troops into 1, 2, or more squads depending on what the campaign allows, and the number of start squares on the campaign sheet. Each squad will have its own counter and perform 1 mission per week. Now you are ready to fill out the campaign log sheet and begin the missions for the type of campaign that you have chosen. These are campaigns in which your forces are on the attack. They are advancing against an enemy force with the objective of securing territory, destroying enemy forces, and completing vital objectives. You start the offensive campaign by placing an enemy hold counter on the map. You will need to place each of your squads in the squares that have an enemy held counters in place. There is only 1 squad per square. Each week, you will conduct a single mission for the current objective square. You will use the objective card that is designated for that square. Instead of a mission card, draw a random location card for the first location of the mission. All of your soldiers will start on that location card, and you do not draw any hostiles for that location. Because you do not use a mission card, you will need to roll using the table to determine the location of the objective card using a 10-sided die. This will also reveal any effects that the mission might have as well. For each squad, you are now ready to start conducting the assigned missions. Keep in mind to recalculate the resource points of the squad in terms of the hostiles that might appear, the location, and objective cards. At the end of each mission, your squad will regain the number of resource points that were lost. You may use the additional resource points to purchase new soldiers, weapons, gear, and skills. If you complete the objective, your squad will gain the resource points that are listed on the campaign sheet. You may use the points to purchase more gear, soldiers, and skills. Flip the counter from enemy held to friendly held, and move the squad counter to a square that is adjacent. You can move freely through the squares that are now friendly. If you are not successful, then the enemy held counter remains in place. The squad counter stays in the same square, and they will attempt the same mission the following week at a new starting location and a re-roll for the mission chart. Remember to mark off each week of the campaign on a log sheet. If you have completed the campaign, check the end of campaign rules. If not, continue with next week. If you did not complete the campaign, remove all experience points that your soldiers gained and start the next mission with the original number. All wounds from the previous mission are healed, and you regain all ammo along with other expendables which may be repurchased. When you complete the campaign, determine your victory level by the number of objectives that were achieved. Defensive campaign is when your forces are fighting during a retreat or trying to protect territory from the enemy. They use the escape mission rules, so treat each mission card as if it were an escape. This means that you start at a location card and work your way toward the mission card. Remember that you do not have to pay the entrance cost for the location card where your squad will start, but you will have to draw for hostiles after the advanced mission timer step. Each mission ends when one of the following occurs. All your soldiers arrive on the mission card, the mission timer runs out, or when you decide to end the mission. Any soldiers who do not make it to the mission card when the timer runs out or the mission ends are considered captured. As with offensive missions, you may recalculate the resource points of the squad at the start of each mission. Mark off each completed week on the campaign log and determine if the campaign itself has been completed. If not completed, remove all the experience points that were gained, heal all wounds, and regain all ammo. Now move the squad to the next square and roll to see what effect the mission will have. Once the campaign ends, compare the resource points of your surviving soldiers, gear, and skill to determine what level of victory you have achieved. And that is how you play both offensive and defensive missions in Warfighter World War II. For those who have experienced the full breadth of the Warfighter experience, or perhaps for those who simply want an extra challenge, there are optional rules that can be added to any mission. There are only 4 optional rules in the rulebook as of the publishing of this video, but no doubt there will be more optional rules to follow at some point. You may put action cards from your hand aside to pay the discard cost of the location one of your soldiers is about to enter. Any action cards that are not spent after paying the entrance cost are discarded. Action cards that are set aside do not count toward the limit of the cards that you may hold in your hand. For example, if your player soldier has a health value of 6, you may hold 6 cards in your hand even if you have 1, 2, 3, or more action cards set aside for paying entrance cost. Keep in mind that you cannot use action cards that are set aside for anything else. In auto-fire or burst mode, if 2 or more of your attack roll results are 1 above your reload number, then your weapon suffers a jam result. You cannot use the weapon again until it is unjammed, which costs an action. For example, the M1918A2 machine gun has a reload value of 2. If you roll a 3, 3, and 6 in auto mode, the gun will suffer a jam. Keep in mind that a jam check is made before attack modifiers apply. So, the weapon may jam and yet you still may suppress or kill a hostile with the attack. If the roll had been 3, 3, and 2, then the machine gun may be jammed and in need of a reload, which may be just your luck if such a case occurs. If you want to feel more like a real soldier, outfit your team and then find out the mission and objective. Just select a random mission and objective card from the same region and let your eyes widen and then roll as you head out. If facing frontline hostiles are too easy, yet elite hostiles are too difficult, you can split the difference by combining both decks. The result are hostiles that fall somewhere in between frontline and elite in terms of their difficulty. And that completes the optional rules that are currently in Warfighter.